Thanks to everybody. We are over our time. So that means if you feel you need to leave, do so. We won't take it as being rude. You'll understand it. But if anybody in the audience does have questions that they'd like to address to one or more of the panelists, please feel free to do so. No? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Pecanello. I'm an adjunct professor at Rockefeller Institute of Political Science. I'm glad everyone's here. It's fantastic to see faculty rally here at the university and support us, given the budget climate that we all face today. I guess there were 2 points that I wanted to raise. I'm glad that Professor Lane was the bearer of bad news in pointing out how the university does face this climate, and that around the world other universities are improving their own capacity to provide a humanistic education to complement also the ability to teach business skills, which are very important. I guess the concern, though, among so many people here at the university is that we are building up our business capability, including Amatech, at the expense of the humanistic aspect of our university. And if we want to provide our students with a full, comprehensive, universal education, we can't build up one aspect of their education while letting the other wither away. And the second remark I wanted to make is about, and I guess I'll disagree with Professor Lane here, about how tuition is set. I think it's actually useful, in a sense, in an educative fashion, that the legislature still does control how tuition is set. I think it's a political issue. It's not so much an administrative. It reflects how our society sets priorities. I don't think necessarily that we should be putting more, allowing tuition go up when our students are facing the worst economic and job market I think anyone in this room will probably remember, at least as far as the numbers I've looked at for the Great Depression. Given that context, as a political issue, we should be rallying in events like this to ensure that the state of New York realizes that as students and faculty, we will defend the university and hold them accountable when they try to shift the burden of public education onto students and defer it from the state. And so I guess I'm kind of imploring and maybe begging a little bit for everyone to think of this more as a political issue in terms of how do we continue to ensure that the state funds public education and then we simply pass the burden on to other sectors that may not be.
Thank you. I think we'll take that more as a comment than a question, unless somebody...
Well, I'll provide one particular answer for how did the state continue to fund this. If you look at over time, the way in which we actually create tax revenues has shifted the burden from corporations to individuals. And personal income in taxes become a much larger portion of the state revenue stream, as well as fees for services, what we call the benefit principle as opposed to the ability to pay principle in taxation. And so for one example, we have what's called a stock transfer tax here in the state of New York. Last year, it would have collected roughly around $17 billion. 100% of that was rebated to Wall Street at its richest year ever. So why aren't we addressing that? Wall Street got rich, Wall Street got bailed out by public dollars, yet we refuse to tax Wall Street, even though it receives the most benefit and has the most ability to pay.
Jason, I'll just follow up on a couple of your comments. And one is, I think it's important to note that the U.S. is still the leader in liberal arts and humanities. And I didn't know that the NYU is building a humanities-based campus in Abu Dhabi. That's a grand experiment. Most humanities-based programs are not successful in other countries. There's still very much a professional focus throughout Southeast Asia, Middle East, where they want to become doctors and lawyers and engineers. I'm generalizing a bit, but that's essentially what it is, without a humanities-based background. So that is important, and that is an important part of the United States. Of course, we need to consider, the extent to which, what is a humanities education, and what's the appropriate balance. And any university needs to go through these processes to think. But it is true that employers, if you look at employer surveys, a lot of them do favor folks with philosophical or liberal arts backgrounds because they do foster creative thinking and critical thinking skills in the U.S. The other note I'll make on tuition is, though, universities are resource-intensive universities, and it's grand to be able to debate the philosophical aspects of who should set tuition and how tuition should be set. But there does become a reality when an organization that is resource intensive needs to look and identify resources in order to be successful. And there's always been a divide between who pays for education, particularly in the public sector. Whether it's the consumer, in this case, I hate to use the business jargon, but those who are getting the good, right, which is the student versus the general public. And certainly there is a benefit to both the public for having an educated citizenry, and I can go through a litany of benefits from that standpoint, but there's also a benefit to the individual. And so at some point when the state has foregone its responsibility to fund public education, the institution does need to look elsewhere. Otherwise, we do risk losing the quality of education being provided to students. So while I do think New York State should be able should provide more funding to education, I think it's also fair for the university to say, you know what, maybe the students should pay a little bit more. I think it is appropriate. It's good for the students in this case because it is more likely to be able to improve the education and maintain the educational quality that's being provided. But that's a grand philosophical debate we get into, but I think there's a reality that we need to think of also in this case.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks to our panelists.